Hi, I'm Sherry Dismuke, the coordinator of clinical practice and partnerships, and I'm here today with Allison Messersmtih in This Week in Professional Year. Allison is a teacher in the Boise School District, and she's going to present to us today about self-care. So Allison, how did you become interested in this topic?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sherry. Again, I teach second grade for the Boise School District, and a couple years ago, I just went through a time in my life where I was going through some health things and had some personal things going on in my family, and a couple years where my classroom students had a lot of needs. And I started to realize how much not taking care of myself and my own self-care was affecting my body and my mind, and how I was teaching to my students. So I just became really passionate about how we as educators can look at starting self-care practice as a way to avoid burnout and take care of ourselves better so we can serve our students and our communities.
Okay, and apparently you're not the only teacher that has recognized the importance of this topic, because you present this as professional development to other teachers. Is that correct?
Yes. I've done several professional development classes for credit through Boise State and NNU, but through the Boise School District for educators, and it's been very, very successful. There's definitely a need for not only educators who have been in the field for a really long time, but new teachers, pre-service teachers who come in who need to learn that practice of taking care of ourselves so that we can, again, better serve our students.
And now that we're all staying at home and have had this huge adjustment in our daily practices and lives with COVID-19, how would you say this presentation could support us?
Yeah, it's actually very relevant. There's kind of two kinds of stress. We have chronic stress, which is when we've got stress going over a long period of time, and then we have acute stress, which the whole world is in right now with this COVID-19 crisis. We're teaching now in a way that we have not ever gone through before as educators, and are trying to support our families through this time. And so understanding that we can bring ourselves back down to baseline in our own self-care during a crisis situation is really important, as well as starting a practice now that will carry us through our careers, our lives, so that we can have a full sense of well-being.
Well, Allison, I'm so appreciative that you're willing to share your work with us and your expertise in this area at this time. So I'm just going to turn it over to Allison right now, and she's going to go ahead and she's going to present her seminar on self-care. Thanks, Allison.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, so yeah, thanks again for having me. Okay. Starting out with just kind of understanding stress and kind of how it works. As we experience stress, our body produces stress hormones, through our pituitary, our hypothalamus glands, and it is speaking to other parts of our body. So it's sending out some hormones that are talking to our adrenal glands, which sit right on top of our kidneys. And those adrenal glands are in charge of our stress hormones, which are sending out cortisol and adrenaline. And you're probably familiar with adrenaline. That's kind of our espresso shot of stress hormone. Helps us get us through acute situations or really stressful situations. And cortisol is another stress hormone. It's long lasting, about 24 hours in our body. And it's also good to have, except when we have stressors that are continually happening in this cycle, it never clears our bloodstream. And that's when it starts to have negative effects on our physical body, as well as our mental health and our emotional well-being. So we take care of ourselves. We start a self-care practice for 3 reasons. We want to reduce existing cortisol in our body, and that's getting back to baseline, especially in an acute stressful situation, kind of like what we're experiencing now in the world. The whole world is kind of in this acute stress situation with COVID-19 and just all of the uncertainty of not being in school and you know, what's happening to our families and jobs, and there's so much uncertainty. So we want to reduce existing cortisol by taking care of ourselves. We also want to support our physical pathways for new stress coming in. We know that this is probably not going to clear up tomorrow, so we want to support our body that as we get new stress, we're able to efficiently clear it. And this is actually really good practice, again, to get in place when you are in the field and in the profession of it as an educator, because it is a stressful profession. So having that efficient clearing of cortisol is also really important. And then the preventative piece of self-care is building physical, mental, and emotional resilience. And we do this through 4 ways, 4 main areas. The physical piece, how do we physically support ourselves? How do we mentally support ourselves? And then emotionally and socially, how do we put things into practice that are going to help us to, again, have a full well-being, not just being healthy in our bodies, but in our minds and our emotions and the way we process stressors that we're under. So physically, we can do specific things to support. Some of these things are not going to be unfamiliar to you, but during an acute stress situation, such as the COVID-19 crisis, our body really needs extra rest, nutrition, and then movement to support our stressed systems. So you can take a nap. We have a little bit more time possibly than we used to, or maybe our time looks a little bit different. So taking a nap is really healing to the adrenal glands, and then going to bed early. Research tells us that if you create a buffer time before bed, so just a quiet time where you're avoiding news, electronics, you have very little input, it's a good time to listen to music, quiet music, maybe read a little bit, stretch, meditate. If we create this buffer of about 40 to 60 minutes before we go to bed to get our body ready for that rest and repair mode, you can reduce that stress hormone in your body by about 20%, which is significant. So again, really focusing on that rest. Your body needs it when you're in a stressful situation. The way we use nutrition can specifically support our bodies in stress. So eating as many fresh and nutritious foods as you can find. And these are, you know, all things you hear about a good diet. When you think about a good diet, eating fruits and vegetables and protein, and there are specific things that you can eat that will replace what our body gets depleted in during a stressful situation. So those dark leafy greens are rich in magnesium, and that helps calm our nervous system, helps with sleep. B vitamins get depleted really quickly in a stressful situation, and those B vitamins help regulate our stress hormones and our mood. So adding in those greens, those fruits, those vegetables. I've listed there on the slide some vegetables and fruits that are high in melatonin. And you hear some people take melatonin as a supplement to help with sleep, but we can actually get some of that naturally through some of these fruits and vegetables. Those lean proteins help with serotonin in our guts, which is a kind of that happy hormone that helps support our mental state. And then vitamin D and omega-3s help get rid of oxidative stress and boost our immune system. So fatty fish, egg yolks, you can get it through supplements, and definitely sunshine. So getting out and moving during the day, that supports that exercise, that physical piece. You can exercise at home, you can YouTube a video, but getting out at least once a day and walking in as much sunlight as you can helps to boost that immune system, getting that vitamin D in, and regulate those mood hormones. So those are all things that you can do to support that physical piece. And again, not new things, but really bridging that gap between what I know is healthy for me and you know, understanding that this is what my body really needs right now to support itself. So maybe not reaching for the Ben and Jerry's, but reaching for an apple instead. So I'd rather reach for the Ben and Jerry's myself, but that's not going to help my body right now. We can support ourselves mentally, our mental state as well. So again, research tells us that breathing in deeply and exhaling longer than you breathe in for, getting all that stale air out of your lungs, and doing this several times a day can reduce those stress hormones in your body and reduce anxiety. And you are breathing anyways, so this is a really easy way to add something that is going to be really useful. Just make it a little bit deeper. So if you're breathing in for a count of 4, you want to breathe out for a count of 7. And just doing this several times a day. And again, research says this can reduce that cortisol in our bodies up to about 20 to 25%. That we can use mindfulness or grounding exercises if you're feeling anxious to support that mental health. And that usually has to do with staying mindful in the present. So we're not in the future and we're not feeling in the past. We're just what is happening in my surroundings right now. And that's usually working with the senses. So one grounding exercise you can do is naming 5 things that you see, 4 things that you touch, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you smell, and something that you taste. And that is bringing you back to present. We want to always ground ourselves so we're not too far in the future, or again, kind of what's happening in the past. We want to be in the present. You can also try blowing a visualization, like blowing a bubble. So if you're pretending you're dipping your wand in and, you know, visualizing blowing a soap bubble, it's really hard to think 2 thoughts at once. So focusing on something that you are doing right now keeps you in the present. And that bubble one, actually I've used with students. It's a good way to kind of de-escalate or bring back to present and getting our bodies to calm down a little bit. That mental piece is also really about finding our truths and differentiating our truths in the story we tell ourselves. So watching our own mindset and noticing negative thought patterns. And then we try to change those pathways. So I have to stay at home because I get to slow down and spend time doing, or I might get sick because I'm healthy right now. So being aware of our own mindset and those thought patterns is really important in an acute stressful situation because our mind tends to think of negative stories. So we really want to work on our own mind. This can also be naming truths, things that you know are true. So for example, how am I going to finish my assignments, right? Or how am I going to finish my student teaching? I have no kids to teach. Becomes this is a new situation and I have people who are working on how this will work out for me. So knowing that people are kind of going to bat for you, but what are your truths? Your truths are that this is going to get worked out. Things will work out. It might not look exactly the way you anticipated it would look, but we're figuring it out. Another way to kind of keep track of your own mental thoughts are considering a digital or social media detox, or at least limiting what we're feeding our mind. And that's really what it's about, is what are we feeding our minds to keep our healthy mental status. I know that for myself, I had to limit, I checked the news 1 time a day. You know, the beginning of this, I really was reading a lot and I started to get negative and I noticed those thought patterns. And so sometimes putting limitations with what we're watching, what we're hearing can be helpful. And then last, in making a schedule for ourselves. Our schedules have become a little bit unruly, I think. And so if you enjoy that structure, having some sort of schedule for yourself can also be useful. So looking at how we support ourselves emotionally, really you can take some time. The way I look at emotional self-care and mental self-care is really thinking about our thought patterns and how do we change negative thought patterns, how do we change the stories we tell ourselves. And then that emotional piece is really supporting what brings us happiness and what brings us joy. So I know that's hard to think of when you're in a stressful situation, but even thinking of it as like, what's a positive distraction for me is a good way to think about emotional. What can I do to bring a little bit of happiness in a situation that maybe isn't ideal? So you can take some time to do something you've been meaning to get done when you have the time. Of course, we, again, maybe have a little bit more time than we're used to. Could look like organizing, cleaning, journaling, reading a book, maybe trying a new hobby, meditation and prayer, and gratitude, maybe having a gratitude journal. Those all have research backup that they specifically can help reduce those cortisol levels or those stress hormones in our body. Playing a game, being creative. What are you doing to be creative? You can try a new recipe. Sometimes in the grocery store right now, it's a little bit interesting what we can find to eat on days. And so, you know, maybe you play Chopped Kitchen and you make up a new recipe. And then watching or doing things that make you laugh, just being silly. And this really boosts the immune system. Laughter boosts our immune system. I know that my daughter and I the other day made a ridiculous obstacle course in our backyard for us and the dog. And I was, you know, crawling under chairs and doing cartwheels. And I have not done a cartwheel in a very long time, I'll tell you. But we were laughing and out in the sunshine, and it was just such a pick-me-up. So it's okay to be silly even in a stressful time, finding ways that you can laugh. There is one caveat I want to say about this kind of this emotional piece is you see a lot of you know, lists of things you can do during a crisis. But if this part stresses you out, like I need to be doing all of these things, it's okay to take a break on that. This is not a time that you have to learn a new language or learn something new if you are feeling really stressed. You just might want to think about it as what might be a positive distraction for me instead of, oh, now I'm going to put more pressure on myself, because that's not good for us either. And then last, just thinking about, you know, remembering our mindset of that present versus a positive future. So thinking right now I can read a book. Right now I can journal or take a bath or play a game, and staying in the present. That's that mindfulness perspective. And then that positive future outlook would be, when this is over, I will sit on a patio and drink coffee at a restaurant or see my friends. When this is over, I will have a graduation party with my friends and family. So having that, this is reminding ourselves that this is truly not a permanent situation, but that we will get through this, and that things will carry on, and we'll get to do some of the things that we love to do that bring us joy later on. So also supporting our social interaction in this kind of era of time of social distancing. We want to stay connected, and that helps with feelings of isolation. Having virtual coffee dates, checking in with people, making phone calls. Yeah, I have some friends who do a virtual happy hour. So whatever that looks like to you, but making sure that you're connecting with people daily. And also doing something kind for someone. You could send a letter, make a phone call, check in on a neighbor. You can send letters or postcards to your students. I know it's hard as educators, it's hard to kind of just stop our school year right in the middle with no closure. I'm sure as interns and student teachers, you felt the same way. So sending a postcard to your students, possibly sending a video message to them through your mentor teachers, maybe doing a read aloud, just kind of watching those copyright laws, but doing, again, video messages. You could do it for friends and family as well, just as a way to stay connected. And then I found an article out of the Greater Good out of Berkeley, and I have these, and I put the link there in case you want to read the article, but asking yourself these 7 questions each day. And these really are really hit each of the areas of self-care. So thinking about who am I connecting with today, that's that social piece. What am I letting go of today? That's supporting your mental well-being. How am I getting outside and moving my body? That's physical. How am I expressing my creativity today? That's emotional. What type of self-care am I practicing, and what am I grateful for? We know gratitude, again, gratitude is a way that we can combat negative thoughts. So keeping up with either a gratitude journal, just naming out loud a couple things that you're grateful for each day can be really positive. And I actually keep these 7 questions on my refrigerator, and I go through them every single day just to keep that self-care practice going. So I think those are the main areas, and I did add a slide there for you with some resources that are specific to Boise State, as well as some other articles and things that I found that might have some ideas to be helpful for you. So.
All right, thank you so much, Allison. We were so lucky to share your expertise with us. I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen.
Yes.
We are just so fortunate to have you with us. I appreciated all of that from a personal standpoint. I was practicing along with you as you went through the slides, and already feel more relaxed and have a vow to go on a bike ride this afternoon. So I know our professional year students and their mentor teachers and all of our university liaisons are going to benefit from your work. And hopefully we can get the word out even further, because what you have to say is so important for people's well-being right now. So thank you again. And just a reminder for our students and our faculty, if you are experiencing high levels of stress or anxiety, we do encourage you to contact that care line that you see, because that would offer extra support for you during this time.
Good. Thank you, Sherry. I really appreciate it. And I wish everybody, stay safe, stay well. And just remember for all of us, just to give ourselves grace during this time. So.